Hello, welcome to the webinar for What's New Geotab for the month of January. Well, yes, it is February 13th. We're looking back on the features that came out or are coming out soon. I'm just going to give everybody a couple of minutes to join. We are waiting on a couple other viewers here, as well as some more moderators on our end. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to join, then I'll share my screen and we can dive into this today. If you haven't had a chance to look through the What's New, I believe it was sent on Tuesday morning this week. So it's been out for a couple of days now at this point in time. And we're also looking to host this every month after that Pulse newsletter does go out. It won't always be hosted by me. Hopefully other members of the team will come ahead and do that for me as well. But like I said, we'll give everybody a few minutes to join here. All right, it looks like everybody is here, and we're going to dive in just 1 minute after the hour here. But if the other attendees do happen to join, then we'll catch them up, I suppose. I'll go ahead and I will share out here. I will share my my Geotab screen. We can dive into this. So if you haven't seen the article we're talking about today, this is what I'll be sharing. Is everybody able to see my screen? I just want to make sure. This is my first time hosting a Zoho webinar. I want to make sure everybody's able to see what I'm sharing. Looks to be good on my side. Perfect. I'm getting some thumbs up, so that looks great. So this is the article we're going to be covering today. There are a few things we will not be covering into much detail. The first, of course, being the safety center, as there are still changes looking to be made on that, but we will cover this briefly today. Other things looking at the new work order management. This is a nice, powerful tool that's going to really simplify how management is done within your environment. It also really does change how the pillars look, especially the maintenance pillar. There's now an order now option available, which might not really be as beneficial to the customers on the line today, but a lot of people might want to utilize this, and this will make everything easier overall for purchasing these kind of software packages. New trip history is also available now, which I will be looking into. New user experience for the assets, which is my favorite update, I believe, from this month of What's New, as well as some web map upgrades, some Go Anywhere upgrades, which I just realized now I forgot to pull up my PowerPoint, but I can do that. Some new settings and rules, and then some stuff as well about advanced routing, which is more for the package delivery side of it all. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll bring this back over to my second screen. I'll launch up PowerPoint here quickly, of course, so I knew I'd forget to do something today, and we'll dive into this. So I've currently got two dashboards opened up here. We'll start with the ADV GPS dashboard, which is our internal testing dashboard. To start off, we're going to look at the risk analytics, which will be under the safety pillar, safety center, and risk analytics. And the big change that they've made to this, which I think is still looking to get reverted back, which is why I'm not really going to cover this too much today, is simply that while before you would only see assets and see the risk of the assets, you can actually now filter this down to drivers. So you could look at drivers directly. In this test database, we actually don't have any drivers associated, which is probably for the best because, like I said, Geotab is looking to go back and make some adjustments to that in the future here. This is also really powerful because you will be able to see all these specific areas for each driver. And then, of course, you can export this as a PDF or an Excel based off either the driver or the asset itself. On a non-testing database, you'll actually see additional lines here showing off your fleet compared to the baseline versus the best in class. In this testing database, we only have our fleet data showing at this point in time. Just for a test, I'll take a look at my personal database here, and I'll see if this maybe gives me more information that we can look at today. I guess they don't have anything comparing to one unit fleets, but as you can see, I'm an insanely dangerous driver at times, and sometimes I don't drive at all. So, I mean, read that as you'd like. Of course, this is really good data for anybody, especially in the safety area, but other people can also log in and see this information, pull the report, and really break down which drivers are at the most and at the least risk. This percentage is actually a risk collision assessment over the next 100,000 kilometers, and that bases it off of all the instances taking place over the previous 100,000 or the previous chunk of data that's available to Geotab. So we can see test one is currently the highest offender. It's got a quarter chance to get into a collision in the next 100,000 kilometers, which I guess speeding being their largest area, braking, harsh braking, of course, harsh cornering, all being factors that are going to lead to this collision. Acceleration is actually pretty good, so they're not really stunting too much. They're more speeding once they get going and braking too harshly afterwards. If anybody has any questions about that, feel free to let me know. Like I said, this will be changing again in the future here, so don't take this as at face value. This will likely change. I guess it's also worth mentioning now before I dive too much into this. If you're not seeing the settings I'm showing you today, you do want to click on your name in the top corner, press on Options, and then you want to expand the beta features drop down here and enable or disable these as you'd like. For today's demo, of course, I do have all of these enabled, as most of these are still beta features tagged by this little beta and the beaker here. After you've enabled or disabled your settings, feel free to save at the top. If you do make changes, it'll prompt you to reload your page, or it'll do so for you. Next up will be the big thing, which is actually the new management tool. So this current database does not have that currently enabled, so I can actually show you how to do that first of all. If you open up the maintenance pillar on the side here, you'll see what you're probably used to seeing: records, maintenance, and reminders. If I were to click on any of these, it'll be what you're used to seeing. But with that beta feature enabled, you'll actually see a maintenance solution is available, and you can choose to migrate or stay on this current system. I would honestly choose to migrate because the new system will be enforced here soon anyway. So you simply press this button, it will let you know that it will be transferring all your data, and the big point is you will not have the option to go back. It also will take some time. So I'll start this today for the training session, but of course it won't be done in today's session because it will take a while to transfer that data over. So as you see, I've clicked that button and I still have those buttons. For today's sake, though, I will open up the second database I have available, which actually has been migrated over. So now you see my maintenance pillar is a lot more simplified. I've got the maintenance center, which I can open, and I'll now see work order management and schedules. I personally think these buttons should be switched because I think schedules is the thing you want to start at first if you don't have a current system in place. So going to schedules, this is probably what you've seen already, or you have not seen in a lot of cases. This is where you'll actually go through and set up your individual maintenance schedules. In my case, I've got a car wash, which is obviously not something standard on databases, but has been customized. There are a few built in, like this electrical system rating and oil life remaining. But then I also have just an entire test one updating every 50 kilometers just to see how the system works, as well as an oil change option every 10,000 kilometers, which again, I've updated the frequency just to show off for today's demo. Again, you can schedule these as reports as well if you like to download any information. If you're looking to download or to create new schedules, you can do so in the top corner here, and I won't be going into detail on this because this is actually the same interface as before. You simply set up the reminder or the condition, you add your assets, and you set up a reminder if need be. Once you're happy with how your schedules are, you can actually switch over to the work order management side of it. As you see, you've got an order listing default by severity. So I've got three options here for my current car. One for the car wash, which is actually due in almost 1,000 kilometers. One test maintenance due in 40 kilometers, but then my oil change is actually today. If I see this, what I could do is I could either click on it here, or I could click on the orders page. I'll click on the maintenance type directly. It'll now load up the information telling me the VIN of my vehicle, the other information, including odometer and engine hours. I can choose to either skip this entirely. Maybe I did this oil change already before I started my work, before I want to take this as work time. I can skip this entirely. I could choose to snooze it for 1, 7, or 30 days, which means it'll hide it from this page until tomorrow, until a week from now, until a month from now, and then it'll re-show, showing that the vehicle status is now due again. Or I could simply create a work order. I'm going to do that for today's demo. As you see, it now jumps to an entirely different page. It'll give you an option to enter a reference number, which will just continue to sequence up from 0 to however many you choose to have. Customizable, of course, I can make this whatever I want it to be. I can choose the due date for this maintenance. I could say maybe this will be due at the end of the month. I can then choose the status, whether I want it to just simply be open, able to be picked by anybody who's able to do it, or I could directly assign it. I will actually go ahead and I will assign this here. I'll then choose the priority, which I think that an oil change should be a medium priority in this situation. You can then go ahead and assign a driver or a user to this update. I'll choose myself. You can even choose a repair site. If you have maybe a specialized shop on your repair list, you can go ahead and choose so from this repair site drop down. You can then go ahead and choose the repair needed. This will be a preventative maintenance in my situation, but again, we do have a list filled out here. You can then go ahead and choose the repair class, which will be scheduled, unscheduled, or emergency. I would imagine emergency is mostly to do with collision, something that has to be done right away. I'll choose that this will be a scheduled repair. You can now go ahead and enter the engine hours and odometer if they differ from the previous screen. In my situation, I'll leave this as it is. You'll then see the jobs available. You can either just simply leave the one job, or you can actually add additional jobs to this information here as well. You'll see that the total costs are grayed out, and that is simply because this is still open. It has not been worked on yet. Maybe you wanted to add more information saying like, oh, the oil type will be this, or maybe check the gas cap while you're already doing this. You can add that information here. If you have additional files to import, you can also do so with this drop here as well. After that's all good on your side, you want to go ahead and press save. And then as you see, it'll actually open up the ticket. So we've got reference 1254. It's medium priority. It is assigned and the time open. This will be updated every time this page is open. As you see, I've had a couple of other instances here where they've only been open for a couple minutes and then they're eventually closed. To see the actual open jobs, you can click on the jobs page and you can see a list of all the jobs, both status open and completed. If somebody were to log into the database here and they see that there's a job assigned to them, they can click on these three dots here to see more about the job. And now this is where it gives you the option to do it. So you can go ahead and you could say that this was an overhaul or whatever it might be. You can choose the code that might be applied to this individual update. We'll say it's a transfer case code. You can choose the priority, which I'll leave as high. And now I can go ahead and actually choose that this was completed and that it was completed today. You can't choose the future, although I had the due date for the 28th. I'll choose like it was due today or done today. And now you can say oil change complete. And this is where you're actually able to add the dollar value. So say maybe the labor was $100. It was 2 hours of work. The shipping costs were 20, whatever it might be. You can just make this all up, or you can obviously take it from the receipt. And as you see, it builds in the total cost here as well. If there are multiple jobs applied to a single work order, you can do this one at a time, and it will take this total and combine it at the end for that work order. You can then go ahead and add any notes from either the mechanic, in-house, or out-of-house. And then obviously, if you really wanted to, you could upload the receipt to make sure everything is fully logged here. I can now go ahead and press save on this job, and you will see it jumped over from being open to being complete, and it'll tell me what date it was completed at. If I look back at the work orders, you'll now see that this one is still currently set to assign. I can now go into this and set it as closed. The reason this stays open is there are other pending jobs available for this vehicle, including both the car wash as well as the testing one that I do have available. I can now go in and add more jobs to this if I so choose. But as you see, the price has now been upgraded here. In my situation, I'm going to say the status on this is now actually complete. No other jobs are going to be required for today, and I can save this work order. And now you'll see it's closed, and it'll show you the total time that it's been open. Does anybody have any questions regarding the work order management of Geotab? If not, then I will continue going on just the other database now. The next thing we're going to look at is the quick overview of the buy now options available. There are currently 3 new solutions available to buy now. And how this works is you actually go directly through the Geotab marketplace and you purchase either Go Analytics, Extract, or TollLogic, and that'll send us the information required to do that purchasing for you on your behalf. So all you do is you click on this marketplace button in the bottom corner, and you look up the options that I provided today, which include both Go Analytics, TollLogic, and Extract. Obviously, these are also available to you here, and you can obviously order some cameras or device trackers, go anywheres, anything like that as well through this go anywhere or through this marketplace option. Pretty small change today, as it's just adding 3 more solutions to the order now options for everybody. Next up, we'll take a look at the trip history. So to get to trip history, you want to go to productivity and trip history. And this looks very, very different than the last time you've seen it. And the reason why it looks different is they're actually grouping these by drivers now, opposed to grouping by the vehicle. So it really cleans up the interface. So as you see, it groups totally by days in this situation because this database doesn't currently have drivers. But I can see February 12th to 13th, 11th to 12th, and obviously it goes down from there. This again can be filtered by any asset or any driver on your database. You can simply look by groups, and you can provide the date range again here. In this situation, I'll click on the very top option. You can either click on it directly like this to see the entire trip, or you can click this little drop down here, or optionally the to stop button here as well to expand the list. Now we've got it expanded, you can choose to highlight individual areas on the trip, and it'll show you those pathways here. There's also a playhead button here, which is really interesting to me. This feature's been around for a while, but it was fairly well hidden before. What this is this is actually a trip replay. So I can simply press the playhead here, and you can see the vehicle moving in whatever speed you like. Right now, it's playing back at 20 times speed. You could even watch this speed in real time. It'd take you 11 minutes and 31 seconds for this recording, but you could actually watch this vehicle in real time. This is really beneficial if maybe you had a collision and you could see if the person was maybe swerving a little bit on the road, or if they took a turn too fast. You could see this all happening in real time. If you're simply looking to see where somebody went, you could crank this up to 200 and just see them fly back and forth on the map here. Again, you can actually see the exceptions really easily now. So I could see all these different exceptions here for this specific vehicle, including harsh cornering. Before you click on this, it would bring you to an entirely different screen, but now it actually keeps you on the map, which is my favorite part of the new trip history update. This is really beneficial when people are asking, hey, I hit a big pothole and damaged my vehicle. Can you show me when that happened? You could actually click on the potential collision, and you could take a look exactly where it occurred. So in this case, we can see the 2 occurrences of harsh cornering, one right here, and then one shortly after. And you can get more information about that here, including the engine profile of that vehicle, which is a really good feature in my opinion. Again, you can go ahead and you can report all, or you can export all of this data into reports as well, pulling from the same reports you've got set up previously. So while the interface might look much different than you're probably used to, the functionality is still the same. Same thing goes for the summary. If you still want to see the summary of these vehicles, you can still go ahead and prepare the report as you'd expect to in the previous interface. Next up, we're going to take a look at the new asset page, which again is a really nice feature, really cleans up the overall interface entirely. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on this test device here, and you will now see a much different interface. They're calling these individual boxes cards, and I think that's a pretty good term for it. So it's now in terms of a card system. So we can see asset information, card, usage card, and so forth. The big update here as well is it does have the fuel percentage, but this is also dependent on the type of vehicle. So in this vehicle, we're looking at a gasoline or petrol vehicle. If this was actually a or if this is an e-vehicle or anything, this information wouldn't show, but you'd see the fuel or the battery usage and battery charge and the battery usage over a time as well. So while this might look a little bit more confusing than before, I can guarantee it's a lot simpler in a lot of ways as well. Number one, the asset page is simply to edit the asset and information about the asset. So you can go in here and you can assign a driver, you can update the hours of the vehicle, you can update the times, even add custom properties or comments just from one page. You can go ahead and add the fuel tank capacity if you'd like as well. Obviously, the other things you're used to seeing, including grouping, license plates, area, are all on this screen as well. The next page will be maintenance, which actually hasn't been updated. It still uses the same system as the last time you've seen this, where all of your maintenance, whether it's upcoming maintenance for your vehicle or history of faults, are also on this screen. Device and setting is the new biggest change to this page, as this is where you will do all of your management of the vehicle, of the asset itself in terms of the device. This is where you'd actually log in and you'd swap the device. If you're used to using the replace with device, or you're simply clearing out and replacing the serial number, this is now where you'll do it. You'll come in here and you'll press the swap button at the top, enter your new serial number, and press swap. Obviously, if the device serial number appears elsewhere in the database, you will still see that error message requiring you to go in and either archive or delete the previous asset using that serial number. But this is the new system. Also under this are now the audio feedback options. So this is where you'd go ahead and you'd enable or disable audio feedback. If you aren't aware what audio feedback is, it's what causes the device to beep during certain actions. In this situation, audio feedback is enabled, but all of the settings are disabled. Maybe you want the device to beep when the vehicle's reversing, you can do that, or when the seatbelt's not used, or even if somebody's revving their engine past 6,000 RPMs. Not 6,000, that wouldn't be good. So you can go ahead and make these changes. And again, the save button will be at the very top here. In this specific information or a device here, we actually have a button called asset provisioning. This is a button that will either appear or disappear depending on what hardware you have in the device. In this situation, this asset does have a camera, which is now going to be implemented directly through the asset page. It will no longer require you using any of these other buttons. You will simply go to the asset, enter the device ID, and save it, and that will provision the device to this vehicle, which can then be looked at later, either on the map or in the add-in itself. Does anybody have any further questions about the asset page? Let's bring the chat back up. It looks pretty clear so far, so we'll just keep going then, I suppose. Next up is the map integration here. The map has seen lots of changes recently. It's probably the most changed feature in Geotab at this point in time. And this change is simply to do with how you search and see assets on the map. So if you click on the actual search button, you can now see all of the options you're able to search from. You can search from any of these directly, or you can click on them and search directly that way as well. You can still group everything. So if you only wanted to see a certain vehicle on the map, you can hit apply and it'll only show you the vehicles applied to that map. It'll also zoom in as close as possible. If maybe there were 25 vehicles here, it would have a wider scope of zoom and it would show me all the 25 vehicles on the map within that group. You can go ahead and clear the filters here as well, which will then zoom out to a wide enough scope to see all the vehicles currently on your database. Filters are now a little bit more hidden, but in a much cleaner menu. You simply press this filter button and you'll see that a side page now opens. And this is a similar tool to the top bar here, but just got a little bit more power behind it. Again, you could use the grouping to search for individual groups, but you can now search by individual assets as well. You could click on multiple of these, press apply, and again, it'll do that zoom to show you them as close as it can. In this situation, it didn't look like it zoomed in for me. I'm imagining because there's something maybe offline hidden away up in the top corner here, but I'll have to look into that at a later date. I can then go ahead and clear these filters. You can even search directly by asset type. If you only wanted to see your tracked trailers, you can do that here as well. You can even go ahead and choose to only see not communicating devices, which is a nice, powerful change because a lot of customers obviously want to quickly see which vehicles are on and offline. And you can simply press not communicating and apply that change here, and you will only see the vehicles that are not currently online. This is really beneficial if maybe somebody in Calgary is reporting their devices offline. You could take a look and say, actually, yeah, the last time it reported was on the south side of the city towards Okotoks. Maybe it's worth checking the installation for that. That's not the correct filter here. We'll pull up the actual filters panel again. And again, the last thing you can do is filter by individual drivers. If maybe you have a large fleet where people drive multiple vehicles, you could simply pull up by the driver opposed to the vehicle, and that will show you which vehicle is that driver is currently associated to. You can then clear all and apply those changes, and it'll bring you back to what you're expecting to see, every vehicle on the map at the same point. The next big changes they've made, is I'll just zoom in on Brooks here as an example, is they now actually have new layering options. In the bottom corner here, you'll see the little hamburger menus. Expanding that, you'll now see much wider range of options. Before, you've seen just the map and the satellite, labels and zones. Now the big thing you can do is you can actually see the weather directly. So if I click on weather, you'll see all these points here on the map showing the weather for those locations. This does apply to anywhere that the weather has been red. So you can see 16 below here and 17 below up north. You can even actually see the traffic. So maybe a customer or a user calls you and says, hey, the road's really, really busy. I'll be there later. You can actually go on here and see whether or not the roads are busy. While, yes, this doesn't pull every road, it will pull most of the major roads. So you can see for some reason, this little road on downtown Brooks was red. So I guess maybe avoid going to Subway today and in Brooks. It might take you a little while to get there, 2 or 3 minutes longer perhaps. Again, you can go ahead and you can save all your views. Maybe I wanted to save this zoomed in view of Brooks with the traffic report pulled up. I can go ahead to the save view here and I can actually save this view. I can provide it with a name, Brooks zoomed in, and I can go ahead and save this. I can even save this as my default if I prefer. That means anytime I load the map, it would automatically load to this view. Go ahead and save that view and you can see that review has now been saved. I can now click on this button again and I can see all my options here. So I can click on my last view, which is up a little closer. I can see all of North America, or again, I could go directly to zoomed in Brooks. Next things are going to actually be this PowerPoint here because we don't have any Go Anywhere devices on our database at this point in time. So I'll go ahead and I'll just share this out really quick. I do see it's sharing to the wrong screen. I'll just switch that. So the new changes for Go Anywhere devices, if you aren't aware, this is Geotab's battery-powered trailer tracker, kind of a slap and track solution. So now you see under the asset dropdown, you'll see an option for under settings, and you can change these devices directly from here. You don't have to ask anybody to make any changes for you anymore. This is entirely user to user based now. The big thing is also battery life. If you installed the vehicle, you can actually see the battery life in real time, as well as how many years or months left the vehicle will have or the asset will have at the current usage level. The other options are you can now choose whether it's a time-based update or a movement-based update. This specific customer I pulled up is using updates based on time with 6 a.m. every 24 hours, meaning it's going to ping one time every 24 hours at 6 a.m. The big change is I'll show you the frequency option here as well. You can also choose to do movement based, which will actually detect a movement and gather it every 30 minutes and then upload the data every hour. If a vehicle is not moving during that time, it will simply do every 24 hours at the time you set. Obviously, this is adjustable here, which is what I'm showing off. You can choose 2, 4, 8, 12, or 24 hours for the time based. And then finally, the high frequency mode. This will send a location update every 5 minutes until turned off. This is simply an asset recovery mode. Maybe your trailer or generator got stolen. You can enable this option in the settings and get an update every 5 minutes until the recovery has been completed. Then you can simply turn this back off. Like it says, this actually will be very hard on the battery of the device because it's not meant to ping every 5 minutes, but that is an option available to everybody today. Next up, we're going to take a look quickly at the rules. The main rules are going to be around device battery and the asset battery. So I'll simply scroll down here and I'll find the asset battery drain. This is simply to do with the actual Geotab device itself. They've actually updated this name to apply to the Geotab device. So this will detect when the vehicle is lower than 9 volts, which will then generate the exception report. I'm sure most customers have this enabled. The newly added is actually the device battery drain here, which is again going to talk strictly about the Go Anywhere devices. And you can enable this to get a notification if one of your Geotab Go Anywhere devices is under 100 days left of life. In this test environment, we've got it turned off simply because we don't have any currently on this testing database, but this can be updated at all if you'd like as well. Next up, and I believe last up for today, because we're not going to really cover the routing tools just based off the customer base we have currently on this call. We're going to take a look at the system settings. This is again just standardizing how Geotab looks entirely. Obviously, they're making a big push towards standardizing the look and feel, and the settings were one of the last options. So if I go to system and settings, you'll see now this page looks entirely different than it did before, and a lot of the options have been just simply simplified, to say the least. Everything is now centered in, again, these kind of rounded off squares in a card system, and everything is much easier to find now. So general's got obviously the general information about your database. You can enable or disable options here as well. Maps is when you want to customize your map options. If maybe you wanted to use a different provider, you could do so here. You could even choose the location sharing radius, which is applied to when you're sharing a location from the map. Assets, this is a page that will allow you to change options available on the asset profile. In this situation, we've got two additional property set, which is now going to be showing on those assets themselves. HOS is if your drivers are using HOS, you could set up your generic rules for that here. User account, of course, is going to show you whether or not you're able to change your passwords as customers. This is also where you'd add in your authentication types and your SAML certificates. You could even choose if you'd like people to be locked out of this account at a certain time. So you can see in this situation, people are getting locked out after 3 attempts. They have 30 minutes to wait and then they can try again. This is all entirely customizable. And we've actually seen a lot of customers running into problems with this recently, just because they didn't know where to access it. So I think that these new changes will make that much better for our customers in general. Communications is where you get to choose who and what will be receiving information. So we could go ahead and choose that all of the critical information about our telematics providers will be sent to somebody, and so on down the list. Data purge is also hidden underneath here. This is where you're chosen to save or delete data after a given time. Set up a schedule based on groups or the entire database, and then choose how often data will be deleted. Per federal compliance, HOS logs are kept for 6 months at a minimum, while other options maybe give 2 months until you can delete them. And then, of course, the add-ins page. We're using a test account here, so it's got tons of add-ins currently added, but this is where you'd also go ahead and add those in for you here. Simply press the add-in button, add the information you need, add any files required, and you're good to be on your way. I think that is a quick overview of everything in the new What's New for January. Like I said, you can join us again around this time next month, and we will be covering the What's New for February, which I'm sure will be very large with Geotab Connect coming up. I've also just sent a poll through everybody here so you can review how this session went today. This session was also recorded, which we are going to be providing a recorded version on our YouTube channel, as well as a link in our next What's New Pulse webinar sent out next month. If anybody has any questions about the What's New, please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer those now today. And if not, we will end the session 30 minutes early and give everybody some time back in their day. All right, I'm not seeing any questions coming through at this point in time. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the session. So thank you everybody for joining. I've been Jordan Osterhold, and I appreciate you joining today. Have a great one. Bye-bye.